I'm 100% confident that Ben Boulware will be a successful linebackers coach at Clemson.
100%. And, it felt like, things were there. There were guys in the building. There was a mindset in the building that, this defense has been missing for the last few years. And so, between him and I liked hearing from Tom Allen Jr., who I think is going to be a really underrated part of this whole operation because he's going to serve a ton of different roles within this defense, obviously in his analyst position, but he's very much a football mind himself, obviously being considering who his dad is.
And I want people to don't make the mistake to think that he's just there because he's Tom Allen's son. He is a qualified person to be in those rooms.
Yes, and you can hear him, and you hear, and it's instructive when you hear just from the other coaches that bring him up, without being asked about him. They're like, oh man, yeah, Tom Allen Jr. He's been Carson Kramer mentioned him during his interview. I thought that was really interesting because Carson Kramer, he's a strength guy. Came in with Garrett Riley from TCU. You're not really expecting him to rave about an analyst, but it says a ton of what the what he's going to bring to this defense as well, and just behind the scenes. So the amount of brain trust, defensive brain trust that has been brought in. I mean, hell, I haven't even mentioned Mike Houston, who was recently let go from ECU, but has been an accomplished defensive coach for a really long time. Is now in the building and basically working for free almost, and given he's giving an advisory role and it's really, really cool to see all of the amount of people that Clemson has brought into this, to the program and the amount of outside perspectives and but qualified outside perspectives that I think this program needed.
Yeah, Dabo's certainly done some work in diversifying his staff and bringing in a lot of experience, right?
Yep.
And that was something that was an ingredient, if you will, that was missing just a few short years ago, right? So I mean, it's the names you just keep rattling off like it's crazy that those dudes are in the building. Shout out to other schools for fitting those salaries for us.
Oh yeah.
So we can get free coaching. Appreciate that.
100%. And so I was really fired up just hearing the defensive guys, especially. I thought Nick Eason gave a great interview too. Got to hear from Chris Rump. I listened to his soundbite about Marcus Dixon and kind of how his transition has gone from tight end to defensive end and how he's taken everything in stride. And he said his words were, "I dropped him in the grease immediately."
That's right.
And if you can take what I'm dishing out, then you're going to be a really good football player. So
right, baptized by fire. By Chris Rumpf. Nick Eason looks like
he always has these catchphrases. Like when you listen to him talk, he always has these sayings, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is. He's always got some interesting phrases that I always look forward to his interviews because there's always going to be one or two phrases that kind of stick with me coming out of his interviews. But talking about Nick Eason, he had a great interview, by the way. And he looks like he's trying to work himself back into playing shape.
I know that's
what he got going on.
Skinny Eason, man.
I need to get on that Nick Eason workout plan. Like, man,
it's impressive, man.
It is impressive.
And that's what we talked about when he was hired, and kind of what, and especially after his first year, we talked about what he brought to the defensive tackle room. I mean, he sets the example for his players. I mean, you remember him doing the mat drills and all of that, I think this offseason, one of the things was you had some guys that weren't in the best playing shape. But, Peter Woods gained weight and DeMonte Capehart wasn't always healthy. And Nick Eason working on his body, I think it's translated to his players too. Have you seen Peter Woods?
Yeah, I mean,
Like
that dude looks like a specimen right
yeah,
now. Like,
he's
he looks
he's
like a
transformed,
freak.
man.
That's terrifying if you're an
Yeah,
offensive lineman and that dude's lining up across from you. Best believe that. But yeah, it does. And I mean, when you're committed in that way, it allows you to hold your players accountable even more. Not that you
yeah,
can't already, right? Because you are the coach and you should be able to hold your players accountable. But there's just a little added extra motivation, I feel like, for your players when you're living it out in front of
yes,
them as well. And you're like, hey, if I'm doing it, you can do it, right?
yeah,
Like if I can take care of my body and all this stuff, you can do it as well, right? So I think that rings true with the guys in this room, and it's clear Peter Woods is in probably the best shape that I've seen him in since he's been at Clemson. I'm looking forward to the weigh-ins to kind of see a couple of these guys and what their numbers are at. I talked I think last week or a couple of weeks ago, Ben Boulware posting on Twitter all the you know body fat losses and muscle gains that his linebackers have been doing. There's definitely a renewed level of intensity on people taking care of their body and getting into elite shape so that they can play their max amount of snaps. And that's going to be important for this defensive line this year, right? Like guys like DeMonte Capehart and Peter Woods and those guys, like being able to play a high level of snaps, and that takes being in elite shape. And it seems like they've gotten that box checked this offseason.
exactly. And yeah, they've led by example. I mean, it definitely like they're saying all the right things, but you're seeing proof that they're
Yeah,
actually living it out right now, and that's important. And you want that to translate into the season, because if Clemson is going to have the season that we think this team can have, it's going to take everything that they've talked about, and because they have the pieces, man. I mean, this is not a defense hurting for talent. And they weren't hurting for talent last year. So, but it's about mindset. It's about preparation. It's about your process and how you do things. And they've completely overhauled their process. And you're seeing the results already before they've even played a snap. So, you still got to translate to the field.
yeah.
You can do all of that, but you still got to go out and do it when the lights are on. And of course, week one is going to be very instructive for how far this group has
Oh
come.
yeah, yeah. And I love it. Like big test, week one. What you got, defense? What are you going to be about? Right? Are you going to be able to stop the run? Are you going to be able to affect the quarterback? Is all this work and all this talk that you've had this offseason, is it gonna come to fruition on the field, right? And I think it will. But let's shift gears and give the offense a little bit of love. Obviously, we heard from multiple offensive coaches. I'm gonna start with one of my favorite, the O line, man. Like Matt Luke, I love that dude, man. I like hearing him talk about his players. I like hearing him talk about football. He's just a cool dude,
Oh, yeah.
and uh, his recruiting has been off the charts. We've been talking about that a ton on the channel, but getting to talk finally about the guys that are in his room, and just talking about how comfortable he is with those guys, and everybody's going to be healthy come fall camp, which is amazing. Everybody's going to be a full go. I know we had quite a few guys on the offensive line miss spring, but everybody was a full go during summer conditioning, and everybody's going to be a full go on fall camp. So I'm really excited to see the next step that this offensive line can take. People like Tristan Lay, this is your money year, right? Like this is the last year to put positive tape out there to get your draft stock as high as you can get it, right? Same thing for
Blake Miller.
Blake Miller. Thank you. On the other side of the offensive line, right? His last chance to get that positive tape out there, and Ryan Lithicum. Is he going to take that next step, coming back as the second year starter at center? He talked about Harris Sewell and how he would be the first in if he needed snaps, if Ryan Lithicum had to come out for any reason. So I'm just really excited. Thought he had a great interview, and just I'm glad that we finally, like, I feel like we have the offensive line coach in the country right now, and I'm hoping we can keep him around for as long as possible, because I can't wait to see the offensive lines that will continuously be created in this Clemson offense. It's been a point of weakness, I think, for this team for a long time, even in our national championship runs. Like, we had some good offensive lines. We've never had elite offensive line play.
No.
And I think that will change under Matt Luke.
Yeah, I mean, and you're seeing the caliber of player that he's starting to bring in. It started last year. Braden Jacobs is a guy that could play for anybody, and I'm excited to see how he kind of works his way in as a true freshman. Don't think he'll start, but you feel like he can add to the depth that I feel like you haven't had in quite some time, and that's kind of the vibe I get when I hear Matt Luke talk about his guys. They truly feel like for the first time they have functional depth at multiple positions, and that's, I mean, that's more than you would have been able to say, especially in recent years. You feel excited about the young talent that you've brought in, but you also are comfortable with where your starters are at. You mentioned the guys and their money. Or Tristan Lay, I think, or Tristan Lee is a guy that I think has a lot of. I think he has another step he can take. I mean, I think he was solid last year. He had his moments where he had his moments. As a first year starter, he had been sitting in the program, had to, his being a former 5-star, his path to playing time wasn't the conventional one. For a guy with his recruiting caliber, but I think there's another step he can take. And Blake Miller too. I mean, who has been a stalwart, and he's been that guy since he basically got on campus. And now he has legitimate first round aspirations. If he's going to get there, he's got to take that maybe another jump and also stay healthy, which he's done a good job at, but he's also played through injuries too.
Yes.
Walker Parks is a guy that talk about playing through injuries. That's basically been
even be playing football, honestly.
Yeah.
It's crazy that he's able to play.
Yeah. Which is why it's so important that you have the functional depth, because who knows if he'll be able to play through the rigors of an entire season, and without any sort of thing that limits him. So just having guys that can play multiple positions. You saw Elijah Thurman, who, from what I can tell, his rehab is going really well, and you'll be able to get him back sooner rather than later. And he'll be obviously one of the guys that'll factor into the depth. You mentioned Harris Sewell, who can play center, who can play guard. Colin Sadler can slide. It can come in at guard. You have a lot of guys. You have some of the younger guys. Mason Wade is a guy that you keep hearing about. And I feel really excited about him. He was a late ad that you got from over Virginia Tech. That I think is going to end up being a really, really good player for you. And I already mentioned Braden Jacobs as a true freshman. Like, you have answers for when guys go out, and that's a very comforting feeling that you just haven't had in quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. I got high hopes for this version of the Clemson offensive line in year 2 under Matt Luke. We saw the quick dividends of year 1, and I expect another step in year 2. And listening to Matt Luke talk to the media and field questions, he feels the same way, that the offensive line will take that next step this season. So I'm excited, and I just love his mentality at offensive line. He was asked a couple questions about more passing than running, more running than passing, and he's like, look, kind of in reference to the Texas game last year where, the offensive line was kind of put in a tough position because they knew we couldn't run. And it's really hard with an elite defensive line like that when they know they can pin their ears back and come after you. That's a tough task as an offensive line. But I just love Matt Luke's attitude about it is like, there's no excuses. Whatever we're asked to do, that's what we should be able to go out there and do, regardless of the circumstances. So I love that mentality. Talking about Tyler Grisham, a guy that has been criticized in past years by Clemson fans about the wide receiver room and the lack of development there sometimes, the lack of production. And it seems that he's kind of really turned this wide receiver room around. And now you're looking at like kind of a 6 deep of wide receivers that are really, really, really good. And you got this great problem of how do we get everybody the amount of touches that they deserve, right? Yeah. Which is a great problem to have. And they're obviously headlined by Antonio Williams, and I expect him to have a monster year. And then the other interesting one is obviously Tyler Brown coming off of a solid year of injury. Like I feel like his career is just tracking like right behind Antonio Williams, right?
Yeah,
they're kind of mirrors of each other, and hopefully he can have that breakout after that, after a year of injury, much like Antonio Williams did. But thoughts on Tyler Grisham and that wide receiver room, Jordan?
Yeah, man. You can't talk about this Clemson team enough without mentioning this wide receiver room. And you mentioned the criticisms that Tyler Grisham faced over the years. I mean, I really do think that he's come into his own in a lot of ways as a coach, as a recruiter. I mean, you see what he's put together in this 2026 recruiting class. You're excited about the future of the room, what he was able to land, a couple cycles ago, of course, with Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore. Like this room this room is in the best place it's been in a long, long time. And I think you have to give him a ton of credit just for what he's brought. I mean, even really when he first started, I mean, it was mostly his recruits that were the ones doing the producing. They just, they tailed off after their freshman year, and you were wondering, okay, is he going to be able to get guys in and get them to be able to play at a high level later in their career? And I definitely think that the room that he stepped into was not the Clemson wide receiver rooms of old, and that certainly didn't help. But I think he did grow a ton, and he's a guy that has a bright future in this profession. And it's probably taken some longer than others to see the vision, but I'm on board, man. I think he's comfortable in his role. He's entrenched in his role, and if this room plays to the level that we think they can, I mean, it's only going to be another feather in his cap when he goes out on the trail in future cycles. So just really excited about this group, and the fact that they weren't arrogant to the point where they still were willing to bring in a transfer to help bolster that depth. It says a lot, and it's a transfer that I think could pay some pretty high dividends for you. And so I'm just excited about this group. It's not just the talent on display, but the diversity of skill set that they have. And you have guys that can play in multiple different roles, and they can be threats underneath. They can be threats over the middle. They can be threats deep. You just have you guys that can make contested back shoulder catches, guys that you can give the ball out to in space on a screen or a reverse, and they can make plays with the ball in their hands. It's a very, very complete room, and I'm just excited to see them. I just can't wait to see him out on the field, especially with who they got throwing in the ball. And Tyler Grisham seems to feel the same way, and he's like, well, we don't really have starters. We don't. That's not the mindset we have with this group, especially. And I think that tells you a lot about how they feel about this group and how all of them can play. I mean, when you feel like Cole Turner is your fifth or sixth best receiver, I mean, in years past, he would have been your second or third. And I think that says a lot about how far this room has come and how good this group actually is.
Yeah, it's going to be a great group. I truly believe that it's going to be reminiscent of old Clemson wide receiver rooms where you just got guy after guy out there, and it's very tough for the defense to key on one because you got somebody on the other side that's going to burn you up just as much. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited that it seems that Tyler Grisham has figured it out, right? And as you mentioned, come into his own. I think he got fair criticism, and some of it was unfair because, as you mentioned, he did inherit a room that was not exactly up to the Clemson standard. We'll just put it that way.